you. Sexual education for magicals.
No. The council has demanded a change of course. We are no longer teaching sexual education. No. We are teaching genetics. Genetics for magicals. Yes. Proceed.
Will you?
I'm from the council.
Okay, well, moving swiftly on. So, when a magical and a magical love each other very much.
No. Sex, reproduction, as it were, isn't necessarily about love. They're two entirely separate things, so, please.
Okay, we'll try again. We'll start with creatures and humans. If a creature and a human were to have sex, they would create a human. Regardless of what type of creature they are, it doesn't matter if they're a vampire or a water nymph, they will always create a human. Within humans we have warlocks and we have dolls. So if a creature and a warlock were to have sex, am I allowed to say that or?
We prefer reproduce.
Reproduce, right, of course. If a creature and warlock were to reproduce, they would of course create a warlock. And same again, if a creature and a doll were to reproduce, they would create a doll. Now, if for some deluded reason a warlock chose to reproduce with a doll, unfortunately they would always, and we mean always, create a dull little baby. Sticking within the magical realm, like sensible people, a warlock and a warlock will always, 100% of the time, create a little baby warlock. Now granted, sometimes their magical power isn't, quite up to standard, but it'll still be there, and that's what's important. So if a same creature was to have sex with a same creature, say an elf and another elf, they would create an elf. Quite simple science really, so same creature. Now, if a different creature was to have sex with a different creature, for instance, say an elf and a werewolf, they can't reproduce. So essentially you're just having sex for pleasure, which we don't frown upon here, of course.
Let's go ahead and
no offspring, just sex.
let's just go into some detail now, shall we? Now everyone, let's do some science. Punnett squares. This is all really quite simple. If you are a doll, you have the big D, and if you are a magical, then of course you have the lowercase d. If you are a human, you have the uppercase h, and if you are a creature, you have the lowercase h. That is to indicate what is the dominant or recessive gene. So, being a doll is a dominant gene, that's why it is a big D, and being a magical is unfortunately a recessive gene. So, if you are a magical and you are reproducing with another magical, you will always create a magical baby. That is one person there, that is a magical individual. Now on this side we have another magical individual. And together, there is no chance for them to become anything but a magical individual. Perfect. Now, we move on to a magical and a doll. Now this is any sort of magical. This is a creature or a warlock. If you have a magical gene, you are a magical. So, let's say a magical, here's our magical person here. Let's say a magical wishes to reproduce with a doll. And here is our doll. As you can see, every single square we have here, so every possibility for reproduction, includes that big D. Do you know what that means? That means that person is a doll. The magical gene is recessive to the doll gene. In fact, the doll gene is so dominant that it destroys any possibility of magic in any forward generation. Moving on, you have your final, a human. Now this human could be a magical or dull, and a creature. The human here is the uppercase H, and the creature, as the non-dominant gene, is the lowercase h. As you can see, just like the magical and the dull, there is an uppercase H in every square, and just like the dull gene, the human gene is so dominant it rids the creature gene of the equation entirely. If a human and a magical creature have reproduced, it will always be a human. That means if it is a magical, such as a warlock, and a creature, who is also of course magical, it would become a warlock. If it is a dull and a creature, it would become a dull. So as you can see, just to review, we have magical, two magicals make a magical baby. And one dull and one magical makes a dull baby. And one human and one creature makes a human. Now that human could be a dull or a warlock, depending upon who the creature chose to reproduce with. Needless to say, the most important thing to take from this is that magical genes and the genes of magical creatures are recessive, which means if you are to continue to reproduce with human or dulls, you will eventually become a dying race. The Council would like to remind you to always practice safe reproduction as well as any other sort of sexual activity.
What they're trying to say is, keep it safe, sane and consensual. And remember, no sex is just as valid.
Thank you for watching.
And make smart choices.